Pisces, welcome back to the 8th house. I'm Dayud. Well, we're going to talk about the Mars transit through the sign of Libra. Mars for you rules your 2nd and 9th house. So this transit takes place in your 8th house. 8th from 8th house. And the 8th house represents secrets, other people's money, its insurance, wills, trusts, legacies. It also represents hidden matters, intuition. So it's also the house of transformation. So here, Mars really wants to transform you. Mars is our energy, desires. It represents our motivation, passions, our forcefulness, aggressiveness. Mars indicates younger siblings. It's also our sexual appetite. And it's in the sign of Libra. Libra as a sign represents relationships, partnerships, diplomacy, harmony. It represents balance, refinement. Now, it also does represent our ideals for social well-being. But these things can tend to lead to arguments, especially with Mars transiting through this sign. Venus rules the sign of Libra, and Mars and Venus are neutral to each other. They're not friendly. So the energy can go both ways here. Venus is currently transiting through the sign of Scorpio. So there's an exchange. They basically say to one another, if you don't mess up my house, I won't mess up yours. But Venus is only in the sign of Scorpio until December 20th. So any fights, arguments that come up in relationships or anything like that, we may see those things after December 20th. So for the month following Venus moving out of the sign of Scorpio is when we might see those things take place as Mars goes further into the sign of Libra and really it puts its force and aggression into relationships and wanting some balance and harmony in those relationships. Also, Jupiter is in the sign of Libra. So really, Jupiter represents our teacher. It's about learning lessons. So it's learning lessons through relationships. So it's learning about ourselves. It's learning about the other person through relationships. And this isn't often the best place to learn because it affects our personal happiness and joy represented by Venus. Relationships are supposed to bring us pleasure. They're not supposed to bring us lessons. But Jupiter is placed here, so it's about learning about ourselves and others in relationships and how that all comes into our own personal happiness and contentment. Because even though we're not happy while learning the lesson is designed to make us happy, to learn from these lessons so that way we don't have heartache down the line. So really this is, as the energy isn't necessarily good to be learning through relationships, it's good because it ultimately produces happiness on the other side. But again, this Mars transit is going to be transiting through your 8th house. But from the 8th house, Mars aspects the 4th, the 7th, and 8th from itself. So this is the sign of Capricorn, the sign of Aries, and the sign of Taurus. For you, this is your 11th house, your 2nd house, and 3rd house. The 11th house represents gains. It's our opportunities, highest goals, ambitions, and desires, as well as our network circles. So our focus, our energy goes into that. The 4th house aspect, though, really represents our happiness and contentment with that particular area of life. 2nd house is finances, it's our value, it's our security, it's family and domestic happiness. And the 7th house aspect is about relationship to it. How are those relationships within the 2nd house bringing you that security? Your relationship to the things of the 2nd house bring you value and security. Domestic happiness, these things, your relationship to them. And your third house. The third house represents our own efforts. It's our adventures, our motivation, enthusiasm. So again, Mars is going to aspect this. So during this transit, communication, all desire and communication might change. Because the 8th house aspect of Mars is about transformation and change. So the communication might change. Your efforts, your desires might change through this transit in relationships. And because again, Mars is transiting through the sign of Libra. Libra represents our relationships and partnerships. So you might start communicating that differently. You might change the way you're communicating to partners and spouse and things like that, because that's what's going on for all of us. We are learning those things and how to deal with other people. So again, your efforts and desires and communication might change through this transit. So that is what I have for you, Pisces. If you want a private consultation or reading, you can check me out on my website, 8thhousetarot.com. If not, I'll see you at the next video. All right, Pisces? Thanks.